All right, family. Black Power. Black Power is the true power with General Sarasu said he kick back, get your mind ready for some information that's guaranteed to be heavy. We got a fire presentation this evening. Ancient Egypt and Islam, what the Quran says about ancient Kemet. We're gonna talk about it, family, because we see today that Egypt is an Islamic nation, but we know that, according to the Quran, that idol worshiping and idols itself is forbidden in Islam. So we're trying to figure out, how that's working. But anyway, before we even get started, I want you to check me out, Patreon, General SETI, over 500 exclusive live streams that you cannot view anywhere else on the planet. You should join me over there at Patreon. The link is at the top of the chat. Also, kingseti.com, online marketplace, official General SETI products, DVDs, t-shirts, hoodies, African and Kemetic jewelry. We got some fly over there for your family. I know you're going to like it and love it. Check it out. Link is in the chat. Also, you can become a member of General SETI, Sarasun SETI's YouTube page, off the chain, top of the charts. You feel what I'm saying? Look at the exclusive videos that we have for you. Become a member. Make sure you get a video a thumbs up, like it because you'll love it. Share it with your family and friends. Comment. Just don't say nothing stupid because you will get banned. Okay? Here we go. Ancient Egypt and Islam, what the Quran says about ancient Kemet. Now, because we're looking at today, and Egypt is an Islamic republic. And even when you break off into the Bible, when you break off into the Quran, it's just not fitting. It's just not fitting that today you got it, and they claim to be a lineage of the ancient Egyptians, but you practice a religion that's not of your own ancestors. I'm trying to figure that out. You see, it should be no way if you believe that you are the very lineage of the ancient Egyptians and you accept a religion of a people that came in and jumped on your people and forced this religion on you and the land, it would seem like you would discard that. You see, you got the most powerful civilized, but there's something to that we understand what it is. This is cosplaying, you understand, to benefit from something that does not belong to you. That's all it is to it, and we're gonna prove that beyond any reasonable doubt. And matter of fact, we've already proven it. You feel me? Now, what does the Quran actually say about Egypt? You see, we tried to tap into it, and AI says Islam does not discuss ancient Egypt as a civilization the way archaeology does. Instead, the Quran focuses on moral lessons, using Egypt mainly through the story of Pharaoh and Moses. So again, right there, we collapsing down on the fact that they can't go beyond. And most people know, and I have to say, it's really awkward, because you will see Zahid Hawass, and all these guys that's archaeologists in Egypt. They know good and well, and they say it out loud, that no slaves ever built anything in Egypt. You'll hear them say, but yet they still Muslims. I got to see if Zahid Hawass is a real Muslim. Because what do you believe? Do you believe archaeology, or do you believe what's in the Quran? You see, because most of the research that has been done has, you see, proven that the Bible, what's been taught about ancient Egypt in the Bible, in the Quran, is false. It's false. So here it is. You're an Islamic state, which means you You know, you go by the Quran, and the Quran says one thing about ancient Egypt, but then you got all this archaeology, all of these temples, all these statues, and all of these things in here. You say this is your people. You see, and then you have many archaeologists that come out and say that the Quran and the Bible are lying. So what is it? Are you really Muslims? Are you confused? You see, you on the fence. You're trying to benefit from Egypt. You see, you're trying to benefit from Egypt at the same time claiming to be a Muslim. We got to find out what's really going on here. You see, the Quran criticizes power, oppression, and ignorance, not Egyptian ethnicity or culture as a whole. Okay? The Quran's general view of Egypt, you know, Egypt is acknowledged as a real, ancient, powerful land. It is portrayed as wealthy, agriculturally rich, politically dominant, but also a place where tyranny and false divinity reached an extreme under Pharaoh. And these same deities and the same pharaohs and all of that, they're still benefiting from that today. And I believe that is against Islam. It is. It's against Islam to have idols and other gods and representations of other gods. So I wonder, how do they get away with that in Islam, to be able to do that and claim ancient Egypt at the same time? You see? Yeah, at the same time. So Islam separates Egypt as a land and the Pharaoh as a system of oppression. You see, now let's talk about some things. It says Pharaoh claimed divinity. This is the greatest sin in Islam. You see, and they quote Quran, what is it? Surah 79, ayat 24, I am your Lord, the Most High. So here it is, the Pharaoh claimed divinity, and many of the pharaohs were the living representation of God, and those pharaohs and those statues are still there. And here it is, this is an Islamic republic. I'm trying to figure out how they are able to get away with that under Islam, you see, because it's in direct contradiction of that. Okay, Pharaoh claimed to be divine, rejected a God, Allah, demanded worship. Okay, this alone makes Pharaoh a supreme example of arrogance in Islam. So is this what they're teaching over there? Because they're Muslims. I heard it myself, you know, they call the call for prayer. You know what I'm saying? The call for prayer. I heard them, what they call them, the Mezouins, calling for prayer. It probably was a recorded call, but, and so I seen the mosque. It's an Islamic state. So this alone makes Pharaoh supreme. So, I mean, many of these pharaohs were the living representation of God, but yet and still, y'all done built the biggest museum in the world, and you didn't put all these statues in there and all of this. So what is that saying? I'm trying to figure that out, And in the Bible was really what cracks me up, because the Arabs and the Jews claim to be from the Abrahamic bloodline, the Shemitic or the Semitic bloodline, and so they supposed to be from Shem, but in the Bible, Ishmael is from the bloodline of Ham, which is the African bloodline, the Ethiopians, and so that's why they keep moving the chess pieces around on the board, so Egypt was from the land. They were Hamitic. They were not Shemitic. They were not from Abraham. Okay, they were not from Abraham. Yet the Arabs claim to be from Abraham. They and the Jew supposed to be from Abraham. They supposed to be Shemitic, or today they say Semitic or Shemitic. You see, so how is they pulling this off? Are you of the bloodline of Abraham? That's why you get some of them say they're not Arab. Well, you look like one. I tell you what, you put one of them wraps on your head and stand next to a camel, wouldn't nobody be able to tell the difference? I can tell you that. I can tell you that. You see? So extreme oppression and tyranny. Pharaoh is condemned for systematic injustice. Indeed, Pharaoh exalted himself in the land and divided his people into faction, oppressing them. Quran 28:4. And it's so crazy because when you go into the Bible, they never talk, they always say this Pharaoh. Who is the Pharaoh? You see, that's a title. You never say who this Pharaoh that oppressed. Who is he? Because what about the Pharaohs that allowed the Israelites to come into Egypt when there was famine out there, and the Pharaoh fed, the Israelites, and did these things for the children of Abraham? Nobody brings that up. Matter of fact, Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Nobody talks about that blessing. He blessed him more than once in the Bible. And so there were, Pharaoh, and there's many passages in the Bible where the Hamitic, the African bloodline, is blessed. We don't hear about that. All we hear about is Pharaoh. Who is this Pharaoh that divided his people? And that's not something that I see in ancient Egypt. That the people under most pharaohs were the indigenous Africans were well taken care of. So when they say it divided his people, and I would like to know what pharaohs that they are talking about, because you don't hear no names. You see, so they saying Pharaoh had class division, state violence, abuse of power, crushing dissent. Maybe the Pharaoh had it on these invaders, who come in, who rob and steal and pillage. You see, and then when they brothers and uncles and fathers come in and conquer, they benefit from that. And then when they brothers and uncles and fathers, when they are dethroned, you want to pretend like you wasn't down with the situation. And so in the Bible, it also says, and there was a Pharaoh that knew not Joseph. Yeah, when we let you come in, it was all good. We fed you, gave you land, allowed you to live in the, and then your fathers and uncles and cousins come to attack Egypt, you join them. You see, so you have to understand these peoples is telling the story the other side of the fence, and they're not telling the truth about what really happened. The Quran repeatedly condemns this, slaughtering their sons and sparing their women. Quran 28:4. This sounds much like Islam. So I mean, when you really look at this, slaughtering their sons, sparing their women, this is hypocritical, because this is much of what Islam did wherever it went. Okay, let's be real about that. Let's be real about that, and so let me come down. So this is portrayed as genocide level oppression and crime that provokes divine judgment. And Islam and the Muslims and the Arabs, when they came into Africa, they turned Northern Africa into a sea of blood. They turned Africa and Northern Africa into a sea of blood. Okay, and so here it is. They putting all these erroneous claims on ancient Egypt. In the reality, this is the resume of Islam. It is arrogance built based on civilizations and wealth. Pharaoh boasts of Egypt's power. Is not the kingdom of Egypt mine, and these rivers flowing beneath me? Quran, Surah 43, Ayat 51, if you need it. Egypt, okay, a rejection of prophets and truth. Despite signs and miracles, Pharaoh called Moses a liar, and he was. Accused them of sorcery, threatened execution. He said, if you take a God other than me, I will surely imprison you. Quran, Ayat 26, no, Surah 26, Ayat 29. Okay, and so reliance on magicians instead of truth. Pharaoh uses state-sponsored deception. Then Pharaoh said, bring me every learned magician. Surah 7, Ayat 109 through 112. Okay, Islam condemns magic used for power, manipulation of the masses, false spiritual authority. Wow, all of these things that they accuse Egypt of is actually crimes of Islam. Is this true? It is true. It's very true. If Pharaoh's end is held as a warning to future civilizations, okay, future civilizations. So here it is, the title, one of the most powerful positions of authority that black people, a black man has ever held. They have turned it into a position of wickedness. You see, so this is crazy. You know, this is why, you know, and I hold my own personal, because you know how I feel about it, you know, and but I'll take time out to really respond to it, because I just want to get to what the Islam thinks of Egypt, and what the Quran says about Egypt. Pharaoh's end is held as a warning to future civilizations. So we seized him and his soldiers and cast them into the sea. Okay. And we've proved that, they say that was Ramesses II, and that's what the movies say. That's what name is given in the Bible. Obviously, they don't, in the Quran, they don't even say a name. So, so if they seized him and his soldiers and cast them into the sea, what Pharaoh was this? You see? Because they found Ramesses' body and so they said that the sea swallowed him up. So I guess he swam back to the top and came on the land and found him a tomb and jumped in a sarcophagus. I don't know how he got back up here and to get back in that tomb, but they found Ramesses II body. He had been entombed. You understand? His sons and even his firstborn son was in, he had a tomb in the Valley of the Kings, where I believe it was close to 50 of his sons. Ramesses was laying like that. But he had something, I don't know how many of his sons was in one tomb, and the oldest son was in the tomb. You see, but they said that, he lived to be of a ripe age. And so they said his firstborn had been killed by God, and come to find out that just wasn't true. So you're going to have to find another Pharaoh for that story, because that story ain't holding up. It ain't holding, because the people ain't wrote nothing. And I'm quite sure something that miraculous had happened. Egypt writes about everything. His writings over every tomb, over every pyramid, over every temple, every piece of jewelry, every statue. They got writing everywhere. There's no way possible that something like this is like, this is astronomical. This is astronomical for something like that. It would have been known all over the planet. And you mean to tell me you find no record of this in ancient Egypt? That is totally unbelievable. And so the Quran repeatedly says Pharaoh's body will be preserved as a sign. Quran 10. So how was it preserved? I want to know how this. So it was Surah 10, Ayat 92. his fall proves no empire is immune to judgment. How Islam uses ancient Egypt theologically, Egypt becomes a symbol of absolute power without humility, civilization without submission to God, knowledge without righteousness. You just demonize Egypt. They never say who's the Pharaoh. And even if you had a bad Pharaoh, what about all the other ones? So you got to specify what it is, who it is that you speak, which you do not do. And I don't profess that any Pharaoh, I look at all of them, and most of them being righteous. They did for the people. Some had lesser talent than others, and that's how leadership go. And so you got the great ones and you have the lesser ones, but the great ones, it's over at least 100. It's over at least, I would say, 100, over 3,000 years, or more. I think great ones. We're gonna just say great ones. We probably had more that was efficient, but at least 100 great ones. So you have to specify who this Pharaoh is, and you have not done that. So just to use the term, to use it as a broad brush to say all Pharaohs was, because that's what people gonna do. Anytime you say a Pharaoh, they're just gonna use the broad brush and they're gonna demonize the whole civilization. And so what's happening in Egypt today is really erroneous for these people to be, yes, they are Muslims. At the same time, they want to be the inheritors of the ancient Egyptian civilization. I find it as really a joke. I find it as a joke that they are allowed to, deface the, ancient Egypt the way that they do. Either you're going to be of the blood, you're going to be of your ancestral spirituality, or leave it alone. Either you're going to be a Muslim or you're going to practice that, and which you're not going to do because you are not the true inheritor of the legacy of ancient Egypt. So what you're doing is actually stealing someone else's legacy. I just have to say what it is. And so when we talk about this, is really, I had other information, and it's a little bigger than the time that's allotted for me. So I'm gonna come back. I have records and showing how literally, a lot of the Muslim pashas allowed the Europeans. It was under the Islamic pashas, the Ottomans, and that allowed the Europeans to come in and literally, man, anything that, if they could have stole the pyramid, they would have took it. They allowed them to come in. They gave them permits to come in and take everything that they could get their hands on. They was taking shiploads. They were just selling ships in. That's how they got all that in the British Museum, the Louvre in Germany, and all up in the Netherlands. And I mean, they filled every museum in Europe with artifacts from ancient Egypt. It's ridiculous. And this happened under the Pashas, under Islam. This is when it happened. I cannot see how that, and even if the people today, they say, oh, we got some lineage that you could even, become something like that. Knowing that they didn't stole so much out of the land, just raped it. And then you accept the very religion of the people that allowed the pillaging of Egypt like that. Man, it's some psychological craziness going on with this, real talk. But anyway, family, I appreciate you coming out. Make sure you get over there. And what's up there, brother? What happened to your page? You got a new page now. Yeah, you got a new page. Been a member for 19 months. Let me see if I can get you up there, brother. Yeah, brother Edward, ain't that you? Brother Edward, what happened to your page, brother? You A-Town shouted pimp. This brother big pimping now. All right. Okay, family, but we got some more fire before the night is out. I want you to stay with it, General. I'm gonna rock you to sleep with some knowledge. Don't you go nowhere. Make sure you arm yourself with knowledge. Bang on the wicked beast daily liberation through African education and confrontation. Boom. Black power.